So the first thing to get to grips with, as ever, is the EVA foam itself and the general sort of design that I want to do. So I'm just taking a Sharpie pen. I want to keep the size as big as I can get in the size of one of these floor tiles. Of course, get a nice sharp blade. I always advocate getting one of these blade sharpeners so that you can keep your blades nice and sharp and really extend the life of those blades. EVA foam will eat through blades. And then just a case of chopping out the whole shape, being really rough. You know, I want this very rugged element to the this flat stone surface. At the center here, I want some really deep fissures because this is going to be illuminated from the inside with LEDs. And I want it to look as well as if it's been partially carved as well. I don't want it to just look eroded or wholly 100% natural. So yeah, so to do that, I have the Dremel tool, and I use the head that's got like the wire brush, so that it wasn't a very fine cut. It was quite a ragged. It tore the EVA up quite a lot. And I want this spiral design with cracks and fissures sort of radiating out from the center. And that was just a case of play until finished, really. So once I'd got in the majority of the fissures and ridges, what I started doing was tugging the Dremel in crossways. So I was using the width of the tool rather than the edge of the tool, and that came to really produce a very lovely stony texture very quickly across the EVA. I was very pleased with that, and will probably use that in future large areas of stone. And of course, I've got to point out, you can see how much of the EVA dust is building up on my hands there. So please definitely have a respirator on for any work of this kind with EVA foam. It's an extremely fine particulate matter, and it will cling to everything. You definitely don't want that inside your lungs. Back to sharpening the blade and adding some more sharp edges, refining the stony look of those outer edges specifically, especially on a piece this size. It's nearly 22 inches across, so there's a lot of area to play with texture. Okay, now we're on to the bulk of the build. Now here the two driving points were, first of all, I wanted to use up a ton of scrap pieces that had accumulated over the previous weeks and months. And I wanted the rock forms to look like they were actually physically clawing their way out of the ground. I wanted them to be very angular. I wanted them to have a hooked-like nature. I didn't want them to look like natural rock formation, or how rock would form in the natural world. Hey guys, so here we are. This is a partway sort of stage. You can see that this has had a lot of bits pieces stuck to it now, and I've got to say this wasn't the quickest process in the world. Just trying to find bits and chop them to make them work in the right place. But I'm very happy with the very craggy ruggedness of it. I think it's going to capture the broken and shattered terrain of Avernus that I'm actually after. This is also actually going to be lit from inside, and so just here I've got this, I've made a section which is removable, though not at this point very easily, but it is removable, and that has this then exposed cave-like entrance in there, which I can use in the sort of the game setting if I wanted to have an actual cave or opening in the side there, or I can block it back off with lights inside. So there are little gaps around all of this, so that illumination will sort of spill out through there. I've blocked some of the bigger gaps with hot melt glue just to diffuse or block the actual seeing the individual lights inside there, but that'll be later in this video build. Now of course I'm building this with a dual use for my Avernus campaign. This will be a sort of centerpiece ground terrain with and has been done so that it's got you know, walkways through. There are also ridges and platforms that miniatures can stand on and navigate around the terrain, and there'll be some smaller pieces to this as well to build to fill out the set. But I am also building the floating rock structures that we see in some of the artwork for Descent into Avernus. So this actually inverts as well, and we'll have a playable surface that will also be illuminated from inside, and on this surface I can place other scatter terrain and encounter specific elements. What I need to do now, as with any EVA foam, is I need to seal this, and I'm going to try something a bit different this time. So this is a decorator's caulk, and this is acrylic caulk. Now you can also get a silicone caulk. On this it says you can clean this off your surfaces with water. Now if you can clean it with water, that means you can dilute it with water, and so that's the next bit we're going to do. So let's get back to that video. So I've got a pretty big area to cover, and it's going to take a while. I also want to be able to fill in some of the gaps from the various chunks of foam as well. So I'm getting a real good amount out of this, probably half of the tube delivered into a beaker. I'm going to add some black masonry paint to this, so I've got plenty of that. And then I'm going to give this a thoroughly good stir, make sure that it's mixed properly. I did realise at this point that I hadn't heat sealed the EVA foam, so get the respirator mask back out and get going with the hot air gun to create that seal. It also prepares these cheaper foams, these floor tiles, to be less porous, so they're less likely to absorb paints and PVAs and that kind of thing. And then I can crack on with the priming with this decorator's caulk. I have to say, it didn't do the same job as PVA. It doesn't harden the EVA in the same way that PVA does. Although I did like the texturing that it gave. So I think in future I would probably still seal my EVA with PVA or something similar. I guess it's also entirely possible I could mix PVA with the caulk and the masonry paint as well to both prime and seal all in one go. I did switch back to PVA for the top because I wanted that to definitely be rigid. I don't know if you saw in my Monday montage a short while back that in actual fact I discovered that the heat gun will dry PVA really fast, so almost carry on working without waiting for a drying time. I was really shocked to discover that. With the whole piece dried, I gave the whole thing a undercoat of black Halford's spray primer, and then I used plastic coat spray cans to create the basic colour gradation. So I worked from these oranges and yellows at the tips of the jagged rocks down into cooler blues and greys, which were applied using mostly acrylics and dry brushing. And I used a variety of different shades of blue, from light blues to dark blues, to really cool the edges to make the fiery temperature at the hot parts of the rock really pop. I'm not going to lie, this bit's going to be a bit of a ball ache. I need to feed the LED around all of these fissures and cracks that are in the top of this. So I've got to kind of hold it from the underside and hot melt glue it from the top side so that it holds the LEDs facing upwards so that they get the brightest intensity. And then of course that finally closes all of these looser sections off and brings the final rigidity to the top of this piece. There is likely to be some burned fingers. Anyway, it's the last bit I've got to do on this at the moment, so okay, so this was one hell of a build. It's not really quite finished yet. Some of the other floating rocks, some of the scattered terrain, the painting isn't quite done. That's going to be the focus of next week's episode, is all of the bits of scatter that I've done on this. Especially these lava falls. At the moment, as I say, it's just for the D&D game. We are currently in Avernus. I think if you're going to go into hell, then you've got to go overboard. You know, it's got to look epic. It's got to look wild and crazy. And I think this delivers that to a player and DM alike. The experience is brilliant. My players have already had a lot of fun on this. This chain has turned out to be a fantastic part of the encounter. So the whole thing is set up on my modular lava terrain. We've got these exploding shards of rock that are sort of molten. We've got the hell chain. We've got the lava falls. We've got a few scattered floating rocks out there. We've got this piece of scatter as well, which I'm really chuffed with as well, which was actually inspired by the hell cysts in Darksiders. So we've got that coming as well as the hell bombs that eject out of these parts, so that's going to be fun. I'd love to see what a game of Warhammer could potentially be like on this as well. I mean, it could suit either fantasy or 40k. As well as many other skirmish games. You know, there's lots of opportunity out there. This is a lovely big area. I mean, it's, as I said, 20 odd inches across. You know, we're on a 5x4-ish setup at the moment. I can go bigger. So yeah, I've got some really exciting news coming about this modular lava terrain, as well as a number of other parts of the terrain builds that I've made, and I'm really looking forward to bringing more news about that to you pretty soon. I'm going to be releasing a little bit of information that's going to sort of give you a good idea of the direction I want to go in next week's session. So definitely be sure to chime in on that and find out what's going on there. So I want to give a big shout out to everybody who comments. I love reading them. I love answering them. I want to give a big shout out to the people who go over to my website and buy my prints, who go over to my Patreon and become a patron of mine. I'm taking bigger and bigger steps in my terrain builds now, and I really want to take the EVA to the next level. I want to take the builds to the next level. I'm looking at bigger premises to start showcasing some of this. So that Patreon really is sort of the way of the future for me as an artist, as a YouTuber, and I want to bring all that to you guys. So if you have it in you to do it, please head on over and see what's going on in the Patreon. I want to build a small community over there once we start getting a few people coming in, so that'll be fun. I'm looking even as well at things like Twitch. It's been recommended maybe doing some Twitch live streams. I'd love to know what you think about that. And I've also been asked about TikTok as well, you know. So, I don't really know anything about that. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do any of you do TikTok? Okay guys, I think I've talked enough. So here are some beauty shots for you to have a look at. Please take care of yourselves. I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.